Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Mile High Game Guys board gaming podcast. I'm your host, Adrian.
I'm Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And this week, we are going to be discuss-viewing some combination
Discuss-viewing, yes.
and reviewing dexterity games.
Discuss-viewing.
Digs into, looks into.
Re-scussing.
I like re-scussing better than... Because viewing means like there's, I don't know, like something to watch.
Well, reviewing.
Yeah. But it needs the re part in there, though. It's not just view. It's just not viewing.
You're not viewing it again.
Yeah. Re-scussing.
Yeah.
I like re-scuss. I like I like to re-scuss things.
We're going to re-scuss dexterity games.
But not just any dexterity games.
Yeah, specifically the kind of dexterity games where you are really trying to get somebody to fail. Probably like the most common example of this that you can think of would be Jenga. Like you got a big tower of bricks and you're slowly pulling them out and you want to make it unstable, but not so unstable that it fails on you, unstable enough that it fails on your friends. And then you laugh at them because they're bad.
They're bad people.
Yes. Clearly, if you're not able to balance things, you
May as
are
well
a terrible human being.
Murdery bank robbers, like Baby Driver.
Yes. Yeah.
What did that have to do with Jenga?
Everything, clearly.
Yes. Were you even watching the same movie that we were, Adrian?
Apparently not.
Yeah.
His life was like Jenga until it fell apart.
Yeah.
And then everything was fine.
Sure.
Because then you're no longer playing Jenga, so everything's cool.
Everything's cool.
Sure. Yeah. So we've been playing a lot of dexterity games lately.
It's basically a core piece of our game nights.
Yeah.
that we do.
Especially because a lot of times dex games are relatively simple to explain and to play, and so they're good for like teaching new players who show up to game night, or like when you're playing in a brewery and it's kind of loud and maybe you don't want to play something that requires a lot of thinking because you've been drinking.
Well, and then it also is nice because it shows people, like, surprisingly, like, I've seen non-gamers, like, when I was telling my mom that we were doing this episode, she's like, what's a dexterity game? And I'm like, oh, it's just this. And she's like, they make those kinds of games? So, and then I'd explain to him, yes, like Jenga. Jenga is one. You know that game. We've played it before. Your memory's failing.
I'm gonna have to put you into a home, Mom.
No, she just got out of a home, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's because she had a. Anyway, if you want to get real, but I think it's nice to show like non-gamers what different types of games they're going to be, because you know you can have, like, I like showing people the picture of Twilight Imperium 3rd Edition where it just covers an entire huge table and
Household.
just like, yeah, household, and everyone's just like, oh my god. But then dexterity ones are great because it's, oh, we're flicking penguins around trying to run away from a hall monitor, and you're like, what?
Or you're building this really janky tower out of cards that you're then moving pieces around on and like hoping it doesn't fall.
Yes, yeah.
Or like the way I've always explained like Suspend, whenever somebody's like, oh, what's this game? It's reverse Jenga.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're, instead of taking away to destabilize it, you're adding to destabilize it.
Yep.
So we won't have our normal rule breakdowns and such. We might go over like who makes what and things like that, but we won't.
And then it'd be like, oh, and you know, we'll talk about this game.
Yeah.
Like we'll sort of be like, oh, you do this and this, but it won't be. I didn't write anything.
Yeah.
It'll be completely off the cuffs. And I've got no cuffs here.
These games are usually so simple.
Yes.
That we don't need those things.
Yep.
No, definitely not. So to very, very loosely define dexterity games in general, BGG listed as action dexterity games often compete players' physical reflexes and coordination as a determinant of overall success, which I think does a good job of explaining dexterity as a whole. For this discussion, we're going to focus on what Zach calls the Dick games, the Dick Move the game.
Dick Move
the game.
Yeah.
the game.
So in some dexterity games like Crokinole, you know, you're flicking a disc around, you're trying to do things, but mostly you're trying to score points. You're not trying to overtly screw somebody else.
Well, and then I think it's mainly not team-based ones, because technically anything you do in Crokinole is like, it's because you affect somebody else, but it's like what I think is like the multiplayer ones where you have more than three or more unique like players, and what I do is just to set you up so that you fail.
Yeah.
Instead of me trying to win.
And usually these games end in failure.
Yes.
There's a few different ones. Like we'll probably talk a little bit about Ice Cool. And Ice Cool has like a predetermined set of rounds, but like otherwise games like Rhino Hero Super Battle, Suspend, like you're really setting, like there's sometimes like Suspend, you win, you get rid of all your pieces, but you're still trying to really set people up for failure. And that's like the big crux of the game is that failure that you're going
for. Yeah.
That doesn't exist in stuff like Crokinole or
My Life.
Yeah.
Aw.
Or Clask or Bonk. Like basically any of those, I felt like the team-based ones weren't really the style that we were going for. So
we all kind of like Dex games here, right? To at
I
least some
really
extent.
like Dex.
I very much like them.
Okay. I definitely like this style, the Dick Move the game, way more than like the 1v1 who's better at flicking a disc around. With
because
a few
it's not you.
exceptions. Yeah, because it's never me. So let's start off with, why do you like Dex games? Like what is it that's appealing about balancing cards or wires or flicking discs or things like that? So Zach, let's start with you. What do you like about these kinds of dexterity games?
I think one of the things I like is that they are like inherently silly, or really it's hard for you shouldn't take these seriously. These are not games where if you're on Rhino Hero and you're just placing a card up and you make the whole class, you're not like, oh, I so fucked up, blah blah. Like you're supposed to be like,
Not going to be floor slapping.
you're not, yeah.
God damn it.
You're just gonna be like everybody else is laughing because you fucked up, and really you should be laughing too because you're just like, oh, this is gonna fail. This is not at all. Oh, God damn it, I did.
And it's over.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the main things is that I feel like it gives everybody a more entertaining time if everybody realizes the inherent silliness of these style of games and that they don't take themselves seriously. Like you said, I like that they're usually very easy to teach, and
It's usually just stack things.
Yeah, you stack things or you flick things, and I think I tend to like the themes that they have too. But some of them can be very divorced from it, but other ones, like when we were playing Rampage or Terror in Meeple City, like I like the idea. It's like, oh, I'm going to crash. I'm trying to destroy this building, so you just take your giant wooden monster and just drop it on the building, and the building pieces go flying everywhere, or you're flicking a bus at somebody's face, and you're like, oh, can I hit them? And as we found out, this
No, you cannot.
You're just gonna flick it over their head every single time, and you're just like, God damn it! All right, I'm gonna get you this time, Paul. Fuck.
What about you, Jeff? What do you like about dexterity games?
They're silly. They're easy. They're fast. It's really easy to teach any of these. Someone that doesn't know board games, you can usually throw one of these at them, and there's zero problem in getting them engaged with the actual game. Just like Jenga. Like, you can put Jenga pretty much in front of anyone, and they'll play the shit out of Jenga. They become much funner the more you drink, which I've always enjoyed, drinking specifically. But a lot of them are like super inventive in how they do stuff. Like all these dexterity games that we've played are super different and can really change from night to night and stuff like that. We can always bring these same games back, and I don't know, they don't seem to get old, I guess, because they're simple enough to just sort of be easy to play.
Right.
And people still bring, I think Suspend was one of the first games that I ever saw at game night that was like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Also, it's a kid's game.
Yeah.
It's a baby game.
Yeah. Also, one last thing that I love being able to be like, to do something that's super precarious, and it's just like, this is probably going to fuck me up, but if it doesn't, all right, it's there. Adrian, enjoy.
Have fun.
So Dex games fit a very specific niche for me in what I look for in gaming, and it really relates directly to our game night group that we have, and specifically the number of new, like, totally non-gamers that we get.
Right.
And the fact that we're playing exclusively at breweries at this point. Like Jeff said, like, these are games that are simple enough that you can teach somebody who is completely new to gaming, or you can teach somebody who is slightly inebriated. And personally, for me, I feel like these are games that, in a lot of ways, get better when everybody's starting to, when, like, there's a little bit of drunkenness. It's towards the end of the game night. Everybody's had a couple beers. Like, on the one hand, people are feeling more loose, so they'll do something a little bit braver. But then also, people have been drinking, so they're reflexes aren't quite what they should be,
Right.
which leads to more ridiculous collapses and, things like that.
Maybe they take a bigger risk and it totally pays off.
Yeah. And so so that's where it fits a very specific niche for me. Like, I'm never going to want to play a dexterity game as the sole thing. I'm not going to be like, hey guys, let's all get together and play Suspend. It's more like, hey, we're at game night. We got a little bit of time. Like, it's the end of the night. They called last call. Like, what do we want to play? Like, oh, hey, let's play some Suspend, dude. Or like, we're all hanging out already at like a house party, and everybody's already drinking and talking. It's like, let's bust out a dexterity game that we can all talk around. You don't have to think about too much.
Right.
And they're great for social games without being like social deduction or all those that still really require you to focus on the game. These are games that you can do a lot of other things, like talk to people or whatever, and still play the game and still play it relatively well.
Well, and then it also works great for spectators because you get to watch somebody either do something amazing and succeed, or try and do something amazing, or try and do something mundane and just fail completely.
Yeah.
And I think that brings a lot to it as well.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about Suspend. So let's talk specifically about Suspend a little bit here. Because like Jeff said, this is one of the older ones that has existed, especially in our game group, for a while. I've given away 2 or 3 copies in our raffles and everything. It's like a staple for me to try and get and throw into the raffles. So, Zach, you want to explain a little bit about how you play Suspend?
Yeah, so it's basically 2 to 4 people. Everybody starts with 6 different like wire pieces or pieces of metal that have bends in them. And so basically what your goal is that there's a die that you roll, and whatever color that appears, you take the corresponding piece and you hang it on this hook that's in the center of the table, and then the next player rolls the die and they just take up another, whatever one that matches, and they have to hang it. They have to continue hanging it up, and each of those little divots in the pieces are where you can hang them. And so as you start, like, it becomes this big balancing act of you're trying to hang it in certain spaces without making the entire thing crumble, because any pieces that fall off of the structure on your turn come to you, because the goal of the game is to not have any pieces. So anytime it falls and you get more pieces, you're like, son of a bitch. So.
Should also mention that this is a Melissa and Doug product.
Yeah, it's their most famous one.
Absolutely.
And it's like $12-15, something super cheap.
Yeah, it's somewhere around $12.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to find, easy to pick up. Doesn't cost very much.
Yeah, and then one of my favorite things too is if you roll, you roll the die and it's a black piece that you need, and you don't have any black, you have to take it from somebody else. And then, and so
just helping them out.
Yeah, you're helping them out. And so anytime anybody fails big and they have a huge pile, everyone's like, okay, well, that's the person that I'm going to, but that actually helps you out.
Yeah.
Because you had this big pile and everyone's slowly taking from them. So
yeah. Which is kind of a nice balancing act in the game. Like, yeah, it sucks when you knock down the entire
I like it.
Balancing act.
It sucks when you knock down a huge bunch of pieces, but then like you're the people that somebody's going to be pulling from, so it helps your pile go way quicker. And it allows a little bit of a catch up. Like, if somebody runs way ahead with the game, when they get down to 1, they're still rolling that 6-sided die. And so they only have a 1 in 6 chance of getting to place their last piece.
So technically something that's in the rules that we just house ruled out is that say Adrian, you only have 1 piece left and it's the blue one, and that's the only blue piece on the table that isn't actually hanging up. If somebody else rolled the blue symbol, you would immediately win.
Oh.
Yeah, because you lost the piece. Like, they take the piece from you, you don't have any pieces. So what we always said was, if I rolled a blue, Adrian, you have to go and you have to put that piece up in order for you to win.
Yeah, which I knew that was the house rule.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't realize that you immediately won.
Exactly. That's where we had like 2 or 3 very anticlimactic of, oh, Adrian just won. Okay.
Yeah. Although it clearly wasn't Adrian who won.
No.
But random person won.
They were just
in this hypothetical world.
Yeah. But I think that's like a rule that it always makes it feels right when somebody gets down to 1 to be like, oh, I rolled your color. That's the only one of that color left on the board, and it would make you win. Okay, you place it.
Yeah.
Now I've still had other anticlimactic games where like sometimes I run into this, like, especially if I'm teaching a bunch of new people Suspend, where they build things too stable.
Yeah.
And like I've had ones where like my last one I can just like drop it on there and then it'll stick.
Yeah.
And it's like, boom. That's what happens when you build it too stable. So I try to really stress to people that like this is a game where you don't want to make it stable.
Yeah.
Like you want your place to be as precarious as possible without failing.
Yes.
Because then it makes it even harder for the next person.
Mm-hmm. Like one of my favorite things I like to do is if one piece is very heavily weighted, like almost to vertical, I always like taking a piece, finding its balance point, and just balancing it at the tip of that one. So now, if that goes down too far, that piece is going to fall off.
Yeah.
And then that'll cause the weight to come back and a rippling of just metal cascading.
Yeah.
But I have also played it a little bit too far in that other direction of not being stable enough. So Allison, our friend, likes to play the same way I do. And we both played a game where it was me, somebody else, Allison, and then somebody else. And so it was always, I would put a fuck you piece. Someone would put a safe piece. Allison would put a fuck you piece. And then too many fuck you pieces came out and everything kept falling. And it took us almost an hour to finish the game.
Oh, jeez.
Because you wouldn't stop fucking each other.
Yeah. It's...
Which, I mean, that's kind of what these all are. Dick move the game. Like you're trying to set other people up for failure.
Exactly.
Even though like that's not necessarily, it's not like Jenga where like it falls and that's the end of the game. Like this one, like, it falls and like, oh hey, you got a bunch of pieces, we're gonna keep going. More alike Jenga in the when it all falls, you lose genre is Super Rhino.
Mm-hmm.
And
Rhino Hero.
Rhino Hero.
Super Battle.
And then Rhino Hero Super Battle.
Yep.
Which is like a slightly more competitive, gamey version of Rhino Hero.
Yes.
So, Zach, you want to give a quick overview of Rhino Hero and Rhino Hero Super Battle?
So, for Rhino Hero, the basics of both games are the same, is that everybody has these like roof tiles or floor tiles that tell you how you're going to be building the walls underneath of it. And so, if it has, they're usually, for Rhino Hero, is just whether it's going to be one piece or two, like one wall or two walls, and then that also tells you the different angles it has to be, if they have to be facing each other, or if it's like right
These are
angles.
all L-shaped.
Yes, they're all
cards.
L-shaped pieces that you fold, but they're made to be folding, so it's not like it hurts the card or anything like that.
Right.
Rhino Hero Super Battle has short cards and long cards. So short walls and long walls. So basically, the short ones are like one level, the long ones are two levels. And if you have you can either have one long one short one, or two short or two long, or one short and one long. And so basically what happens is you put the walls up and then you put the roof tile on top of it. And Rhino Hero has you do certain things depending on which card you put down. It's like draw an extra card or place another card, move the Rhino Hero, or make somebody else draw a card and stuff like that.
Because in Rhino Hero, you're just trying to get rid of your tiles.
Yes. Yeah, if you ever run out of yours, then you win.
Right.
So Super Battle also adds these spider monkeys, which are just little cardboard cutouts that hang on the roofs. It's making you interact with the floors more.
Yeah.
And then you have a die for that one that moves your hero up, because in Rhino Hero, there's just one Rhino Hero that's moving up. Whereas in Super Battle, everybody has their own one, and you're trying to just get as high on the tower as you can before it collapses.
Yeah.
And if you ever end up in the same floor as another hero, you basically roll dice to fight. The loser goes down to the next floor, and if there's another person there, it's another fight, and it just keeps cascading down. And then if you ever make the structures of either of them completely collapse, then that's the end of the game.
Yep.
And then so for Rhino Hero, it's whoever has the least amount of cards. If it's
that wasn't the collapser.
That wasn't the collapser.
Collapser always immediately loses.
Yes. And then Super Battle is whoever was the highest up when it collapsed, unless you were the person that made it collapse, in which case everybody else wins.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Rhino Hero is a good intro to this kind of game. Like it's similar to building a house of cards.
But it's like one tower.
Yeah.
Which
one skyscraper.
Yep.
And you're a little bit more constricted in how you place the cards and how you build the tower. But, and although you still want to unbalance it, because this is still a dick move the game, like you want to make it really hard for the next person. But at the same time, like I noticed in playing that game, so often you're just relieved to be able, like once it gets past a certain point, you just end up relieved that your placement worked.
Yes.
But it's like, I don't care, have fun.
Well, it gets so high that no matter how stable you make it, it still just keeps getting less and less stable.
Yeah.
So you're just like, I'm going to put this 2 in the most stable one just so I know I can actually keep my card up there because I have to move that fucking rhino and I don't want it wobbling around.
That piece of shit.
Yep.
Whereas when you switch over to Rhino Hero Super Battle, all of a sudden a lot of that changes.
Yes, especially because the cards are a lot sturdier.
The floor cards.
Yes.
They're like a thicker card stock.
Yeah, and you are not limited on how you place the walls.
Yeah.
Basically, it's just your floor has to be supported by these walls. It can't like lay on another floor.
Right.
But otherwise, you can make it as stable or unstable as you would like.
Yeah. And I've noticed like one of the things I really like in this one is you have these base tiles that start the game, and you can position them kind of differently. Like when I played with Paul, we played with them in the 3 tiles in like kind of an L shape.
Yeah.
And so like it led to really interesting crisscrossing floors.
Yes.
Like, and interconnectedness in weird ways. And then having to move your hero up. Yeah.
Super Battle's building you can make is much more interesting than the first.
Yep.
Intricate
the first
and
one.
ridiculous.
Yeah, because that first one, it's just, like I said, making a skyscraper as tall as you can. This one, you can make it however you want.
So just a big conglomeration of messy floors and tiles and just being fucking other people hard.
Yeah. Because your hero, it's your hero that you're moving. If you leave it on the floor and then someone builds up above you, you get to put those floors any way you want. So you can make it really awkward for them to try and grab their hero to move.
Yeah.
Which is always funny to do. Oh, and like the same thing with the spider monkeys. You put them in weird places because there's only 4 of them, and whenever all 4 of them are off the table and they're on the structure, you have to grab from whatever the lowest one is, and you put it up, and you slowly move them up. So there are a couple times where I was just like, all right, where's the lowest spider monkey? And it's like, oh, it's right here in this fucking corner that you can barely see.
Yeah, like good luck trying to scissor
pincer
2 fingers in there very gently and
Yep.
not tip everything. I messed up in 2 different games. I did the exact same thing. The wall cards, like we talked about, they're bent. They're folded. So I was holding them like pinchered with, like, it's hard to describe on the podcast. It's easier like if I had them here to show you, but like if you imagine that I was holding the 2 outside edges of this folded card and I'd be trying to place it, and as I'd go to let go, like it'd slip out and just fall, and both times I lost, that's how I lost. Like I was placing it and it just popped out of my fingers, and like it was like, all right, well, next time I play this, I need to know to like actually pinch the card between my fingers, not the fold between my fingers.
And you are able to use both hands in this.
Yeah.
So like Suspend, you can only use one hand.
Which, I don't think I necessarily realized. I think I've always played this with one hand.
No, yeah, but this one you can use 2 hands, so you can try and make it a little bit easier. But it's still, once it gets like 13 stories high, it'll start leaning.
I think we got up to like 17 total.
You had that one picture you guys played at Paul's house where like the angle the picture was taken at, I don't think it was intentional, but like you could see the door frame like right along there, and at the bottom the base of the game was like right along the door frame, but as it went up you could see it increasingly leaning away from the door frame.
And that one ended because I was trying to figure out where I wanted to put my wall or my floor. Yeah, and then I breathed just a little bit too hard.
You just went,
I went and then
it was over.
Boom, it's over, which was fine.
Yeah, and so that's kind of like the way these games play out. Like, we're very similar to Suspend. The end game conditions are different, but still the whole point is you're building this with the hope that somebody else makes it all fall. And when they do, you're like, ha ha ha, sucker.
Gotcha, bitch.
Gotcha, bitch.
Which are, again, like, so going back to what I said I like about these type of games, you know, for hanging out like at a party or, you know, a bar or wherever where you're drinking and just trying to have some fun. They're a great way to kind of cut loose and have some fun.
Yes.
What are some other dexterity games that y'all really enjoy that are in this similar dick move the game type genres?
Another one that we've played a couple times is Pitch Car, which is basically a racing game where your race is a wooden disc, and it comes with...
It's like a crokinole disc.
Yeah, it's like a crokinole disc, except there can be up to like 12 other people just on a very small, narrow strip with you.
And you make your own track
Yep.
out of wood track pieces.
That come with the game.
Yeah,
And-
they got like little interlocking puzzle edges, so you can kind of clip them all together.
And
Yeah.
like red rubber guardrails. So you don't fly off the track Most of the time.
They usually only go on the
Half the time.
on the curves.
A quarter of the time.
Yeah, a quarter.
But yeah, they only go on the curves and stuff like that. But this one is more of the dick move because they're like, when you're making a corner, there's a lot of times where like these narrow openings, and then like Adrian will be like, a couple inches right in front of it, and then I manage to hit my piece right in front of him to where now I'm in the opening. So at best for Adrian, you will hit my piece and we'll both go in. So I basically get a free movement. But then also best for me is if you hit me, that causes me to go in and you just fly off somewhere else.
Yeah.
And then it's more of oh, God damn it, why'd you have to get right in front of me? And then you're like trying to figure out how to hit it to where you can actually get where you want.
Yeah. Now this kind of shifts into an entirely different type of these dexterity games where we're back to like the crocodile style, like you're flicking discs around. I agree that these are still more of the like dick move the game than like Crokinole is. Like Crokinole, you're actively trying to score points and there's more of a framework. Whereas this one, like, yeah, you're trying to win the race, you're trying to be the first one around, but there's a lot more of that like, I can knock you off the track and then put myself in a really good position.
Yeah.
Or like you said, like, let me cut just slightly ahead of you so that when you go, you have to help me.
But that's all dependent on you actually being able to flick where you are wanting to go.
Yeah. This is where I start to. These types of dexterity games aren't quite as fun for me. Like I have to really go in with the right like mindset and attitude when I'm sitting down to play these as to the like, this is just going to be ridiculous and I can't get upset because I can't flick a disc to save my goddamn life.
Yeah.
I am real bad at flicking discs.
Well, and especially so on this one, it's just every turn you just flick your disc as far as you are able to. I'll go on the track, and it's usually like 2 to 3 laps, and whoever and then it basically just go. You do a turn order, and then everybody just goes in that turn order. And in the base way to pitch car, whenever you fly off the track, you just start where you were before.
Where you just hit from.
Yeah, where you just hit it from. So basically, like you never left. You just stayed there. But there was a derby aspect that we were
Destruction
playing Destruction Derby
variant,
which was like if I hit Jeff and that caused Jeff to fly off, you go to where I flicked from.
Yes. Also, if you go off the track, you were supposed to go back to where you are. But in the Destruction Derby, you just come back onto the track from where you left.
Yes. And then also my favorite part, but I don't remember if this was actually part of the game or just something we came up with, wherever the ass end of your race car was.
So these are all round discs that have a sticker on the top. And so we would always, this was not in the rule book in any way, shape, or form. You would have to hit from whichever direction that car ended up being.
Yeah, so if you had to go straight, but you were like 145 degrees to the right because of your ass, like the tail of your car.
You would have to stand behind the easiest way, the closest you could to hit from that direction.
Yeah, and so it can make really easy shots like, oh God, this is so much harder.
I am now standing on the opposite side and trying to flick towards myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar in that vein, you'd mentioned earlier, Zach, Rampage, which is now known as Terror Meeple City. You're flicking your disc around to move your monster, but then it adds in other elements of dexterity like throwing cars and dropping monsters.
I would say it's like, I feel like it's almost the gamiest out of all the ones we've described so far.
Yeah, I could see that. Especially with like the different cards that give you abilities and like specific goals. And,
yeah. So that Rampage is, it's up to 2 to 4 players. You're all of your monsters, and you basically build a 3D city made out of cardboard floors and meeples.
Meeple columns.
Yeah, columns / people. So it's just people holding up these wooden things, and then they see giant monsters coming in, and they're like, oh God, this isn't going to end well.
That's why it's Meeple City, right?
Yeah. So on your turn, you get 2 different actions. Well, you get 2 different actions. There's 4 in total that you can take. There's just flicking and moving your monster. So that's just you flicking your, you basically, like you said, you have a disc that represents your feet. And so if you flick that, that's you moving. Then if you end up on a sidewalk next to a building, you can demolish said building by dropping your wooden monster piece from about shoulder height onto the board. And then usually that causes destruction. And,
to say the least.
Yeah. And then
sometimes it just bounces off harmlessly.
Yes. No, many times we had it where someone dropped it and it hit right on the center and they just went bounce and they just bounced a second and then just flipped off.
Yep.
You're like, okay, well, nothing happens.
Yeah.
It's a very sturdy construction. But so you can also, if you are in the same neighborhood as like a bus or like these little car vehicles, you can put that on top of your head and you just flick it at something, and that's you just throwing the vehicle. If it goes off the map, then it goes back to its spawn point, but otherwise it just stays on the map. And then the last one is you basically have your breath, and you put your chin at the top, on top of the monster, and you just blow. You know, or whatever.
One breath.
Yeah, one breath. And then if you ever have meeples fly off the board, then those ones have run away. And then there's this sheet that if after a certain amount of run away, whoever made that happen, you lose teeth, and then bad things happen to you or good things happen to the other people. And then at some point, if enough meeples run away, the game just ends, and whoever caused that loses no matter what position they were at.
Yeah, which we were real close to that being the losing condition in the most recent game we played.
But the other way for the game to end is just if all the floors have been destroyed.
Which is usually how the game's ended when I've played.
Yes, definitely. And then after you take your 2 actions, any meeples that are in your neighborhood, you can eat a certain amount of them depending on how many teeth you have. And if you ever knock somebody over, you steal a tooth from them.
Which are worth points at the end of the game.
And it denies them eating more meeples.
Yeah.
And basically, you just keep going around with that until the game's over.
And there are power-up cards and
there are power-up
upgrades.
cards, character cards, which gives you extra points, and then super secret cards, which are one-time use, which are usually powerful.
Yeah. And this game, in some ways, like although it's the most gamey of them, because of some of the ways in which it's beneficial to directly attack another player, especially depending on what powers and abilities you have, like this one can really get into dick move the game. Like, oh, you're conveniently on that sidewalk next to that building. I bet you want to smash that next turn. Let me just knock you away.
Yep.
And knock you over. And oh, I've taken some of your teeth too. That's unfortunate.
I do have to say this is one of the coolest games to actually like take out of the box and build.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of little, it's not just a flat board. The foundation of every building is like a adhesive cardboard piece that you have to like put on to
it's slightly
game
raised
board.
so that way when you hit it, you're not just going to knock all the buildings over.
Yeah, it has a foundation.
Yeah, you can't just flick the base out from under.
Yeah, that was my favorite part about building the game.
Yeah.
And when it's built, like, especially when it's first built and you're about to play, it looks awesome. Like, there's varying sized, like, buildings. Some are kind of rectangular, some are kind of square. There's multiple levels. Like,
There's a stadium in the middle.
which is super sturdy and a pain in the ass to knock over.
I mean, there's 8 meeples supporting it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's this one for me though is frustrating because it is the gamiest. It's one of the ones that I have the hardest time just being like, oh, whatever, this is just la shenanigans, and it's like I want to win. I want to win real hard.
I want to eat everything.
And when I don't, it's like, well, I'm clearly fucked.
well, and I think a lot of it is for you is that when you're wanting to demolish a building, you drop your guy, you drop your monster on there, and depending on where you hit, like you're still you're trying to aim. You're like, oh, I think if I hit it here, they'll knock into my neighborhood. But even if you got that aim right, you could still drop it, and the pieces just fly to everybody else's neighborhood.
Yeah,
and you're like,
well, I don't eat this turn.
yep,
I'm a hungry monster.
yeah,
And since that's like one of the biggest sections of points, like that can really hurt you, that kind of random chance of like, how exactly is this going to bounce?
yes. And I think a lot of it has to be whether you can embrace that or not, because you're breaking down a building. They may not fall towards you. They might just you might knock the building over on the other side, and there's a bunch of dead bodies over there.
Or the one piece that you need that will score you an extra 13 points if you get this one meeple.
Mm-hmm.
It lands and bounces on your last move of the game to where you can just barely see the sliver that shows that he's safe on the sidewalk and not in your neighborhood, so you can't eat him.
Yeah, he's on the sidewalk next to a ruin that you are literally your foot's touching him.
Yeah.
And you're like, sorry, buddy.
I guess you're safe. Congratulations on hiding under that chunk of concrete.
Yes. But I for this one, I really like that they give everybody unique powers. Because it makes everybody feel different. Like the one I had was sharp canines, and so I always got to eat 2 more meeples than I was able to. So even when I lost all my teeth, I was still able to eat 4. It didn't help me at all. I got fucking dog shit last place. Like literally, I got. All right, you might actually find this funny, Jeff. So I had 9 points. What did you have?
Like 21 or something.
21. Paul had 32. or something like that, and then Andrew had 46. Adding my score to anybody else's score still kept them in a whatever place they were in. Adding me to my own score, I was still fourth. Adding me to Adrian's score, he was still third.
It's impressively bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know what? Even adding my score to Andrew's score, he was still first. He couldn't get any higher than that.
Shut up, Zach. So, talking more abstractly again, kind of about...
No, we're talking about dexterity, not abstract games.
Oh, shit.
true.
All right, well, never mind.
Also, unfortunately, this is one of my favorite games of all of these that we are talking about. And I don't think it makes a great game night game, just because the setup and pieces going everywhere.
Yes, 100 times, yes.
Fortunately, as much as this would be perfect to play at game night, it's like I would need some sort of bubble to put around the game so I don't lose everything in the game.
Yeah.
Because things go flying. That's the whole point of this game.
Exactly.
Well, and if I could trust the breweries more to like be sweeping up and be like, oh, this is a board game piece. Let me contact Adrian, who runs the board game group, and be like, hey, here's the 7 pieces I found on the floor cleaning up the brewery today. And then I could be like, oh, hey, in the group, here's all these pieces I found. What games are...
But you know what? Even playing at somebody else's house doesn't necessarily mean...
Oh my God, Paul launched a piece so far back under his couch.
It was his feet. He had launched his own foot disc underneath his couch.
Yeah, he was doing practice shots while we were setting up and hit it wrong, and it bounced back off, hit his knee, fell down, hit the corner of the table, and then rolled under his couch, and nobody could get it. Like, we had to lift the couch substantially so that my tiny arms could, like, weasel in there. And even then, I was just barely, stretch.
Impressive.
Barely got it. Pulled it back. It was like, oh yeah, here's also a flip-flop, and here's a giant ball of dog hair. Go fuck yourself, Paul. You are a bullshit person.
Yep.
All right.
So, aside from obviously, like, we like the dick move style thing, like that's a huge part of who we are. Like, we're constantly, poking each other in the ribs, like, aha, fuck you.
Yep. With other people's ribs.
Yeah. Here, Jeff, let me borrow your rib real quick. I got to poke that.
Yeah, I don't need that.
Yeah.
Is that the main appeal for you guys for this type of game? Is the negative player interaction, the actually getting to interfere with somebody? Or is it something else? Like, is this some... Yeah, I don't know.
I'd be lying if I said no.
No, for me, it's specifically, I like setting up people to fail.
You really like building them up and then ripping them back down.
Yeah. I like it where it's like, all right, on my turn, everything's fine. Nothing's falling down. Can you do that also? As it's just like if you look at it, it starts leaning.
Oh God, close your eyes. Close your eyes.
Yeah.
I like some of the all the flicking games where you get a real good shot in there that totally bones someone else.
Yeah. Or like in Ice School, which is another flicking game, but instead of a disc, you have this weeble wobby little penguin guy that when you flick it, it's not necessarily just going to go straight. It could just go off in this random corner. Or if you like hit it on its head in the right way, it can bounce up over walls and stuff. And I think for me, like those flicking ones, when you are able to get exactly how you want, whatever bullshit shot you're like, okay, I want to bounce over this wall and then have it roll underneath this door towards this other door, and you do that. Oh, that feels great. Personal victories and then watching other people fail. That's what dexterity games are about.
I mean, my favorite thing, like speaking of Ice School specifically, is when it's like, well, I don't really have any good shot anywhere. I guess I'll just flick it through this door. And then you flick it through, and it does all of that shit you just described unintentionally. And it's like, yeah, I meant to do that.
Yeah.
Like, no, really, I was just trying to get it to that door. Instead, I flicked it over the door, and then it rolled through another door, and then got me a fish. And
you are also almost as likely as just being in the cafeteria the entire time, because no matter what, you can't flick yourself out of there.
Yeah. So one of the things, like on the BGG post that you made there, Zach, we said we'll talk a little bit about what we like and don't like in these type of games and what we're looking for in them.
Yeah.
So we've talked about basically two slightly different kinds, like the flicking disky styles and the balancing styles. Which do you prefer in general for this type of game?
This one I prefer balancing because I can more affect somebody else fucking up because I set them in a precarious position. It makes it a lot harder for them to balance.
Okay.
So that's the one I tend to prefer more.
Jeff, I assume you're kind of the opposite because you said you really enjoy like when you flick just right and it really gets in somebody's way. Is that accurate? Like,
yes,
you prefer the flicking?
I do enjoy the flicking. I have unfortunately not played Flick 'em Up yet, but I feel I would really like that game.
I do want to play that too.
I've played it. It's pretty good.
It's team based though, so that's why he didn't talk about it. Pew, pew.
Yes,
It's
shot wooden bullet to you.
It's kind of the cross, I think, because we could have thrown it in there as the like dick move the game because you're definitely trying to interfere with other people and get in their way, but
yeah, I definitely like the flicky type more, like Ice Cool, Pitch Car, Terror, Meeple City. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty good at flicking off, flicking discs.
Pow pow.
Pow pow. Both barrels.
Yep. Always locked and loaded.
what the fuck? Can't even continue. I'm with Zach on this one, shockingly enough. I prefer the stacking ones because assuming that I hold the cards correctly so they don't fly out of my hands, I'm much better at balancing things and like structural integrity than I am at flicking in a straight line.
Right.
I'm really bad at that. I can't flick in a straight line.
I know you're always hard at going straight, so yeah, I get that.
But
pillar.
But I like how twisted and weird and then unique I feel like the stacking games can get, especially Suspend, and then now having finally gotten to play Rhino Hero Super Battle, like those buildings are just twisted and weird and there's different levels and like, yeah, this floor is on one short wall that's on top of a different floor with a different short wall, but the other end of it's on a tall wall and they're awkwardly balanced and
everything's supported by this one long wall.
Yeah.
Like everything's supported there.
Yeah.
And it just feels more
shaky
precarious.
foundation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not up to code.
And although I do get a lot of satisfaction out of the setting somebody else up to fail, I also like when I nail my own placement. Like this building's getting tall, it's super wobbly. Like I mean, it was so close to failing on Zach's turn, and he looks real smug right now because he thinks there's no way I'm going to place this. And then it's like, boom, boom, place. I'm good. I'm set. Wait. Hold. Oh, shit. No, I'm good. Jeff, it's your turn. Jeff, go.
That's one. The one thing I want to speak on that is for Suspend is that technically, like your turn starts when you grab the dice. So anytime it's wobbly,
don't touch it.
You're
Don't
just
touch
like,
that
okay,
dice.
you're always like giving it a 5 count. 1, 2, and I've seen it go 3, 4, and then it tumbles down. And you're like, yeah, I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Or 5. All right, you grab the die. And then it all tumbles down. God damn it.
Or somebody not paying attention. You place your piece, then you're really quickly like, all right, here, it's your turn. You hand them the dice, they just grab it, and then it all falls. It's like, yeah, I knew it. I made it last just long enough.
Exactly, yeah.
So, in general, then, is there anything you don't like about dexterity games like this?
They're all clearly perfect in every way.
Like, I would say my only problems, like, one small one is that sometimes the rule books aren't the best and stuff like that, but, like, for Rhino Hero Super Battle, it says if it ever collapses, then that's over. But I know that we've had times when it's just like,
there was a minor collapse.
Just this one-story building that wasn't connected to anything at all. You accidentally brushed it, and that fell over, and it's just like, is that supposed to be the end of the game now? If it is, fuck, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And so I always feel that there are always like little rules. Sometimes they have little rules like that just aren't fun.
Yeah.
That like the suspend rule about if you lose you roll and someone takes your last piece, you just win instantly.
Or Pitch Car, where like you need that Destruction Derby variant
exactly.
to like really enjoy the game, because otherwise it's like,
otherwise
this game is far too
off and they go right back where they were, and there's no negatives getting knocked off.
Sometimes they can get too simple, and that might just be who we are as gamers and stuff like that. That we just need something a bit more. So yeah, that's the only thing I can really think of right now. But go ahead and say what you want to say, and then I'll say
Jeff,
you're wrong.
What is there anything about these that you don't enjoy?
I think, rule books can get kind of rough, and they take a lot of house ruling, but that's kind of what makes them more fun.
Mm-hmm. And it sucks when the entire thing falls down because you accidentally exhaled versus setting something. Oh, that's also the bad is that if you're playing on a table and somebody else happens to just bump the table
Or dog.
or anything like that, and all that stuff like things outside of your playing element cause the game to end prematurely.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. It's a risk. It just always sucks when that happens.
Yeah. I'd say for me, the one thing that really holds me back from this being like a super favorite, like I have a lot of fun with all these dexterity games, especially the like stacking, balancing type ones. But the thing that kind of holds it back for me is that there's just never quite enough there to satisfy me long term. Like this for me is the like fried rice of board games. Like it's fun and tasty. Like fried rice. Like I like it. It's tasty while I eat it.
Never
but it doesn't
heard
stick around.
I've never heard fried rice been described as fun before.
Well, so fun's not the right. So the fun value. Like I have fun while I'm playing it, but it doesn't last long afterwards. It's not like satisfying.
Okay.
And same thing with like something like fried rice. Like if I get fried rice with like a meal, like the fried rice itself, like yeah, it tastes fine and everything, but in and of itself, it's not very satisfying. Like it's a nice add-on, like a nice side dish to my main meal. Like so, these are great for like a game night. Like yeah, I'll play a little bit of this, or like how we were doing it this Sunday, where like I went over to Paul's to watch football, and we played some dexterity games while we did football. They almost always there needs to be other things going on to kind of keep me entertained more than just the dexterity games. They're not usually quite enough. Like I'm not ever going to want to just meet up and hang out in a room and play a dexterity game with nothing else going on. Like that's not going to do it for me.
Now, do you still get annoyed by certain things even while playing dexterity games that you do when you play regular games, i.e. randomness?
Not nearly so much. Like Suspend, like the dice rolling randomness, like it can be really frustrating. Like, there's been times I've been in the lead, I've had one stinking thing, and then just I can't roll my one. Like I'll have like the black one, and everybody else will have that same little short black piece, and they'll all roll their black pieces and get to place them, but I can't roll mine, and then nobody else rolls mine, so it never goes away. And like it goes like 3 or 4 turns, and then somebody else wins. So it's like I've been on my last piece for several turns. I just can't roll it. Like that gets a little frustrating, but that's infrequent enough in that game. It doesn't bother me. And then like Rhino Hero and those, like there's not so much randomness that it's like, oh God, this randomness is ruining the game.
Okay. So I have 2 examples. Ice Cool. The cards, how you get points, you just draw out of deck, and they could be anywhere from 1 to 3 points.
Ice Cool plays way too fast and is way too silly for me to ever take it seriously.
All right.
So that's never bothered me.
Okay. And then Rampage, when we were talking about the pieces, just...
Rampage, more what frustrates me about Rampage is like a little bit of how the pieces can just bounce wherever the hell they want. But especially, as like I said, I don't... Like, if I have to split these into 2 categories, like balancing style dexterity and like skill at flicking a disc dexterity. I significantly dislike the disc flicking compared to the other one. Yeah. And that's where so it suffers from that. Like I'm not good at flicking discs. So to be like in the game we had, like I was setting up to flick and I was trying to do it with my left hand because I was awkwardly leaning around a building, and so I'm left flicking and my finger slipped prematurely and I bumped it like a half a centimeter, and Paul was like, "Oh, that's your flip. That's too bad." It's bullshit, Paul. You're a bullshit person.
That was a good
impression.
Yeah, it was a good impression.
I thought I was in the room.
So like things like that, like, and that happens to me in Croak and all those. Like I'll be like setting up to like really flick and like thinking out, and then my finger just slips a little. It's like, and I touch it, and it's like, that's frustrating. The randomness of like, you get the powers and stuff, and like even we played the most recent play, we did a draw, deal 2 and then pick 1.
Yeah, the in the rules it was said like you draw 3 of each and you pick 1 is the you get to choose your own monster sort of thing.
Yeah,
and so
the problem is like you choose one. Like one of the ones I chose was if I knock another monster down, I get to take 2 teeth instead of 1, and I got to knock down 1 monster and take 2 teeth, and then before I was able to hit another monster at all, you had all through other means lost all your teeth.
Yes.
So it was like, well, that ended up being a useless power, and I had no way of.
You don't know before you start the game whether or not yours is useless. No, I get that. Like I had a superpower or a secret superpower that was I got to eat from somebody else's neighborhood instead of my own.
Yeah.
And it never came up.
Yeah, well, then my secret power, because I was like, at first I was really excited. I was like, these play really well together, because I had the knock somebody down and get 2 teeth. And then my super secret power was knock down everybody in your region and steal a tooth from them. And even if we'd stuck to like, oh, that one only lets you steal 1 tooth, like, there was still never anybody in my region with teeth.
Right.
Like, I knocked down Andrew's piece. I think it was the one that I got to actually take 2. And it was his last 2. So he had no more teeth. And then other than that, there wasn't really ever anyone else in my region. So like, and that's where I said Rampage, especially being the gamiest of these dexterity games, is the one that it adds too much game to where I get too invested to just willy-nilly have fun with the craziness of what a dexterity game should be. Okay. Adding in all that game clutters it up for me. I like things more simple. Like, I really like Suspend. I have a lot of fun playing Suspend. I like Rhino Hero Super Battle more than Rhino Hero because of how ridiculous the buildings can get and everything. It seems more ridiculous and less planned, I guess. Like, there's less strategy.
Do the dice annoy you at all in that game? Because the dice...
Not any of the times I played.
Okay, in Super Battle is... the attacker gets a die that has 2 2s, 2 4s, and 2 6s. The defender
evens and odds.
Yeah, evens and odds, basically. And so the defender is always at a distinct disadvantage.
It probably helps that in the 3 games I played, I only had to roll dice 3 times. And twice I was the defender against Andrew. Both times I rolled a 5, and he rolled a 4 or less. So I beat him as the defender both times, despite being disadvantaged. And then the one time I went against Paul, I think I still won. Yeah, I still beat Paul, and I was never the attacker in any of my 3 or 4 games of Super Battle. But
gotcha.
No, the game is simple enough that okay, I rolled ridiculous, whatever. And especially from the start you're set up to not win as the defender. So when you do win, it's like, hell yeah, I beat the odds.
Okay.
And then if you lose as a defender, it's like, oh well, the odds were stacked against me, whatever. That doesn't bother me.
Did you guys play with the house rule, the die house rule?
No, we did not.
For Super Battle?
The gray die add +1?
Yeah.
No, we played with the -1 to +3.
Yeah. That was what was frustrating.
Because there were a couple times that that was where a lot of my defensive battles came from, is I was right behind somebody and then they rolled the -1 and had it dropped at my level and was like, oh, now there's a battle. Well, and then I beat them and they dropped again. And it was like, haha.
So a lot of times when we played, we as in me and Jeff, not you, Adrian, this part of we, not the entire we.
Yes.
Is that 4 times in a row, I want to say.
Maybe 5.
Maybe 5. Jeff would just on the ground floor.
And just -1.
-1, -1, 0, -1. And he was just on the floor the entire time.
Yep.
Yeah, that's real frustrating.
So we were thinking house rule +1 if you're on the ground. So at least you're a 0 or a 1.
Yeah, I could see if you're
but then then you can go up to 4.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could see if you're on the ground, you always move at least 1 up when you roll, so that you always get off the ground.
Right.
Now, what was interesting, when we played, the first thing Paul built was a level 2 building, and then he rolled a 1, and it's like, well, I guess I can't move up.
Yep.
And I like that. Hey, you chose to build a too tall building. That's kind of your fault.
Yep.
So I could still see you move up at least 1, but if there's not a 1 to move up to, too bad. You need to roll a 2 or higher. But I don't know how to really effectively make that work to where you're not I don't think it's fair to add a +1 to where if you roll a 1, oh, now you're rolling a 2 and now you do make it up to that second. I don't know. It's tricky. We talked about it a little bit before we played, and we ultimately decided not to play with that variant you guys came up with.
Yeah. We didn't really go over Ice Cool at all. We sort of talked about it.
Ice Cool feels especially of these ones, especially the ones you listed on the BGG post there, Zach, it feels like the least directly dick move the game. There's not a lot you can really do to screw with people. If you're the hall monitor, you're trying to flick into other people. Mm-hmm. But again, you're not, you're mostly hoping that they flick into your room. So you're like, ha ha ha, I have an easy shot at you.
Yeah. And I think that's just because it's basically a race. The game's a race to get 3 different checkpoints.
Yeah.
And if you're the hall monitor, your 3 checkpoints keep moving around.
Right.
And you can't, as the other people, you can't really do much. You can technically hit other people to try and knock them closer to the other guy, but then that is also hurting you because
You're not racing.
you're not racing then. So
Yeah.
it's just
If you're not first, you're last.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not. It doesn't help your positioning at all.
Yeah.
and also it doesn't really hurt them as like. Basically, you could try and hit somebody to make it to where they don't get into a door, but I feel like there's enough ways to counteract that stuff that it's just.
Yeah, I think it's the one that kind of stands out in that list of like not quite being what we're talking about here.
But it's also not Yeah, but it's still a lot of fun.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, I love Ice Cool. I've had a ton of fun with Ice Cool.
Yeah.
I think Ice Cool would be a good one to try and find a way to make it into a different, because I also really want to talk about the components.
Yeah.
The way that box stacks together.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So we'll try and work that in maybe some other time to where we can discuss it more in depth, since it doesn't quite fit
Talk about
here.
it twice.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I like dexterity games. They fit a very specific niche.
Right.
Of like, these are what I look for filler games. Like, there's not a lot of filler games that scratch like the heavy gamer side of my itch, and so instead I look for something like this that's just so ridiculous that I don't get too competitive about it, but that's still fun to play. And a lot of that fun comes from watching somebody else fail. It's that Schadenfreude. Like, ha 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 ha, you messed up, and that makes me happy.
I just realized on one of the tables in Ice Cool is a copy of Ice Cool.
Yes. Yep.
Anyway.
Have you guys? Oh, let's see. Have you ever played the Lumberjack game?
I haven't. I really want to play.
I have seen someone bring that.
Lumberjack.
Yeah.
Somebody brought it? Damn it.
It was a long time ago.
I played it at.
It was at Wit's End.
Yes, but I played it at Conclave of Gamers like 3 years ago.
Yeah. Man.
I enjoyed that one.
That's one I'd really like to play. Click Clack Lumberjack. It's one I've had kind of vaguely. It's that same kind of thing. There's less of the dick move, I think, in it.
Well, it's more of a it's balancing by destruction is what it is.
So you still have the opportunity to see somebody fail spectacularly.
Yes.
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
There's apparently another one.
Yes, the
Bling Bling Gemstone.
It was basically just a remake of it. Yeah.
There's an article here that I'm going to include in the show notes. That's like a blog post on BGG called The Value of Dexterity Games. And it kind of goes over a lot of different dexterity. Like, it talks about crokinole and stuff, and Tumble and Dice, which is another one that I'd like to play sometime.
I played that one.
But they have one here called Caveman Curling, which looks really fun. It's a caveman-themed spin on curling, the sport where they throw the rocks on ice and run ahead sweeping like a crazy person with brooms. So on this one, players take turns flicking their discs along the icy lake, trying to get the closest to the fire at the end of the board. The playing board is made out of a special material that contains just the right amount of traction to enable remarkably accurate shots, and where you need to judge the distance carefully. After each shot, you can use a special item on the rock you've just flicked. A hammer can adjust its distance. A totem can protect it so that you can rethrow it later if it happens to come off the board. And then point scoring at the end is just like in curling or bocce ball. You score 1 point for each of your discs closest to the center than the nearest of your opponent. So, I don't know. I like bocce. What's the table version of curling like you see in the bars sometime?
Oh.
Shuffleboard?
Shuffleboard.
Yeah, shuffleboard.
I like shuffleboard. Like those kind of, like, as bad as I'm at flicking, if it's sliding something on a sandy wooden board, that's subtly different. But yeah, there's a lot of dexterity games out there. There's a lot of dexterity games out there. I don't know. You guys have anything else you want to
say about Dex games?
Say about Dex games.
They're fun.
They're fun. Mm-hmm. You hope they have good quality for components.
We could just cut out the rest of the episode and just put this in there.
Yeah. Have you guys played any dexterity games that have had bad components?
Not that I can think of. I mean, like, I wouldn't necessarily say that, like, Rhino Hero or Rhino Hero Super Battle has great components. Like, they're creased cards that are foldable. Like, Rhino Hero Super Battle has the thicker
I think their cards, like, their cards are well done.
But I mean, at the same time, they're not, like, super nice. But these are games that the component quality is a very, very distant second. Like, that's always kind of a lower thing on my tier.
Yeah.
As long as they're functional. And I don't think I've ever played a Dex game where the components aren't functional.
Right, yeah.
That'd be the worst thing. Like, yeah, if you're playing, like if you were trying to play Suspend and they were like some kind of super soft alloy that was like just
Bending
bent.
on its own.
Like you overstack one piece and it just bend or break or something.
Right.
Like there's none of that. If you were playing a card game and it was like 8.5 by 11 paper quality, where it's like I can't stack anything on this. like it'd have to be really bad before I feel like it'd be something I'd notice. I think
that it's basically just something that they're going to weed out of the creation process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like for Dex games especially, if it's functional, then I'm not going to notice. It's only if it breaks the game that I'm going to notice, like, oh shit, these components are ruining the game.
It's super important if they aren't up to par, but after a certain point, then it's...
My third-party knockoff Crokinole board, the pegs are too narrow for the tokens to fit through them.
I don't know. Ants in the Pants is pretty bad, I guess.
I haven't played
Ants in the Pants in forever.
But that's like an old, that's, I feel like a little bit different.
Ant and David, I believe, played that at Gen Con.
Yeah.
That's right, they did, yeah.
Out of the game library.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think then that kind of wraps up the discussion of it. If you guys don't really have anything else you want to chit-chat about.
I don't think so.
I noticed that I only had 2 Dexterity games, and I was surprised at that.
That you only own 2?
Yeah.
Where do they all come from? Other people. That's the real answer.
Crokinole.
Well, I don't count that one. Not that. I was talking about...
The dick move ones?
Yeah.
All right, so you
Suspend.
own Terran, Meeple City, and Suspend?
Yes.
Okay.
I own Rampage. Thank you very much.
As do I.
I didn't know you owned Rampage.
I love Rampage.
Is it in Chicago, or is it still
it's
here?
here.
Okay.
It's under my bed.
I don't own any Dex games.
You own
Closest thing,
Suspend.
I don't own
I
Suspend.
thought you did.
Nope. Closest thing I own to a Dex game would be the Climbers.
That's not a Dex game at all.
No. Yeah. Suspend, Rampage. I think that's it.
Ice Cool and Rampage for me. So
Yeah.
I know. Well, before we completely close out this episode, Zach, there were some BGG responses.
there were, most of them, unsurprisingly, were just like, I like this one. So Eric says some of the modes of Junk Art are great for setting up the next player to fail. Have either of you played Junk
I
Art?
haven't.
I know Paul has it.
Paul owns it.
Paul-
and I've really been wanting to play it, and
Yeah.
I wanted to get it played before we did this discussion.
Yeah.
because I know it would have fit really well here, but I didn't have the chance. So
Yeah.
I'll amend some of my opinions once I maybe get to play
Yes,
Junk Art.
but it seems to be another balancing one, but it has a lot of gamey aspects to it.
Yeah.
So
Which, like I talked about, like I'm fine with a little bit more gamey, like Rhino Hero Super Battle versus Rhino Hero, but too much gamey, a la Rampage, Terran Meeple City, kind of breaks my ability to just enjoy it for what it is.
Right. Gotcha.
So I don't know. We'll see how Junk Art falls
Okay.
in that spectrum.
yeah. Dorks Gone Wild says, I need to bring Hula Hippo to a meetup. I don't know what that is.
Hula Hippo is an old game. It is it's from 2005, but it's a reprint of Mouse in the House. And like reading the description on BGG, I'm not sure. Like you're trying to. So each round, one player spins a wooden ring, making it rotate on the table before the ring slows and falls. Players simultaneously flick their tokens with their fingers to try to place them inside the mouse hole when it lands. Yeah, anything that ends up in the ring is removed, and the first person to get rid of all of their pieces wins. So this one doesn't seem to me like it's super much a dick move style game, but
Certainly Dexterity.
But it's definitely Dexterity and probably a bunch of ridiculous fun. So next response.
It's from Patrick. My favorite Dex game doesn't involve a board, but is too often a solo game. Some weird ones not mentioned include Capitan Wackle Pudding, where you push boats with stacked pieces around. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great content right there for all our listeners.
yeah.
This is what it looks like.
Everyone goes to the BGG page and they can follow these links to look at these same pictures.
Yes.
That's,
Riff Raff with the balancing ship.
he made a game. Weird.
What?
Riff Raff is a rapper.
Oh.
Bad.
Oh, I've seen this one. It's like it has literally it's a balancing ship with a bunch of like all this
This looked like this would be a super dick move the game.
yeah.
Yeah, this fits real well.
Color me interested.
Yep. And only from 2012.
Yeah. Hamster roll with a crazy looking wheel. It does look like a crazy wheel.
Yeah.
Well, it's a hamster wheel.
It's also like $63 because it's from 2000.
It's like, oh, wow. It has like these pegs and you're balancing based on the pegs and you're trying to lock things in so they can get turned all the way upside down and stuff like that.
Without falling, yeah.
That's pretty cool. Eric B. and I had fun playing fancy dressed up coconuts at the Granite Game Summit during a break of our epic Eclipse game. Coconuts, it's this game where you're like a monkey and you're flipping coconuts into a bucket. Seems pretty... I was in the Kickstarter for that for a while, but I decided not to do it.
Womp womp.
Yep. Looks interesting enough. And I think they redid it a little while ago.
It's like the number 1 rated children's game.
Yeah.
On BGG.
It is number 1. It also has a weight of 1.05.
Ooh.
With 116 votes. 6 people said it was medium light.
Continue with the post, then we'll talk about the game.
I'm just saying, I saw 105 and I was like, that's interesting. Fellow architects may like Arch Rival, where you eventually have your arch fall down from the weight of the pieces you've put on it.
Wes, you might want to look into that one.
Is it you're building an arch or you...
You start with an arch and then you pile things on top of it until it collapses.
Okay. And I always mention ball sack, hoping ball
I think
sack?
it's ball sack, but
sack.
it sounds like ball sack.
Ball sack, hoping to get the host to try and mention it on air.
We clearly have no problem saying ball sack on air a whole lot.
Ball sacks.
This looks to be another balancing one, too. I've really wanted to try Meeple Circus. I've heard good things about that one, which recently came out. It was actually at Gen Con. It's all about balancing shit.
Wait, which one?
Meeple Circus.
Oh, I don't know that one.
I almost bought it.
But you didn't.
Nope.
That's it for BGG.
Yes.
Yep. And we didn't have any emails about Dexterity games. So I think this kind of brings Dexterity games to a close.
Yep.
They're light and simple, kind of like this episode.
Indeed.
But lots of fun. Also, hopefully like this episode.
A real light over an hour.
Yep.
Right on. Well, if you want to get a hold of us and give us your thoughts on Dexterity games that you particularly love and enjoy, or why you hate Dexterity games, or why any of us are wrong about particular Dexterity games, you can do so through our emails.
Emails at milehighgameguys.com.
You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram /MileHighGameGuys. You can comment on the BGG thread that Zach put up over at Board Game Geek Guild number 2731. You can also tweet any of us. I tweet under at MHGameGuys.
I am Zach _MHGG.
And I'm Jeff _MHGG.
And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this episode. And be sure to tune in next Friday when we will be reviewing the 2-player kind of war game, Twilight Struggle. The Cold War game.
Yeah.
The 2-player Cold War game, Twilight Struggle.
Burr.
It's frosty.
Getting cold in here.
Yes.
There must be some toros in the atmosphere.
Oh, God. Stop now.
Bring it on.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody, for listening. Hopefully you've enjoyed this discussion about Dexterity games, specifically the screw with other people variety that we here at Mile High Game Guys love and cherish. As always, I've been your host, Adrian.
I am still Zach.
And I'm Cat's Grace Jeff.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. You could have gotten some like cuffs that were just cuffs, like a short sleeve T-shirt, and then put cuffs on.
Mm-hmm. A tuxedo T-shirt with the cuffs.
There you go.
And then like $2,000 cufflinks.
Yeah,
Clearly.
Yeah.
Solid gold.
Yep. But then those are suit cufflinks, not tuxedo cufflinks, and then everybody makes fun of me.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
Punchboard Media, where we all
bring something
to the table.
pull up a chair
At punchboardmedia.com.